And welcome back into a brand new episode of Tribal Council Chat, the flagship show of the Reality Realm Network. As always, we are your hosts. My name is Bruce Heller.
And my name's Brett Parnell. I'm back after a week off. I may have been in the Caribbean having a great time, so thank you to Kevin for filling in. But last week I was both stuck on a deserted island in the rain, feeling like I was playing Survivor, and as sunburnt and hungover as Johnny Fairplay at Tribal Council.
Yeah, Brett was off globetrotting again last week, as one does. I'm glad you had a good trip, other than apparently being rained on a deserted island. I missed that part of your pictures.
Yeah, I have posted that part. We were out on a beach that almost just gave me the impressions of being on Survivor when it just started to torrential downpour. And kind of like the cast back in Samoa, you just kind of have a what the F moment and go, well, I'm out on the beach. I can't go anywhere. I'm just going to sit here in the rain and make the best of it.
I saw the pictures of you on a beach, but it looked like it was a sunny beach.
That was in St. Martin, not in Antigua.
Uh, that's
Different day.
That's funny. I missed that story. So moving on, episode 6 of Survivor 48. What are your kind of overall thoughts?
I mean, let's just let the cat out of the bag already because I have to say it. Charity made the merge.
Yeah.
Once
Okay.
again,
I'm even more confused about Earn the Merge than normal this time because Probst says like the winner of the individual immunity will be the only one at the merge buff and the only
yeah,
one who like actually makes the merge. But then the
which I
reward
love.
is called the Merge Feast, which historically is given to like once you make the merge, you eat the merge feast. So are these people merged or not in Probst's eyes? I don't know anymore.
I have no idea. Maybe someday we need to get to one of these like Sandy Island, I don't know what they call it, things in Times Square where Jeff is actually in person and we can ask him that question in real life.
Oh, the beach drop things.
Yeah, that.
Well, usually he's busy at those saying a sentence or whatever that half the fan base latches onto and hates.
Oh well, the fan base is gonna be what it is.
So it's the most recent one about like getting territorial over people going on other shows. I actually agree. I'm actually not with him on that one. But the whole
Yeah.
like Probst doesn't want to cast villains thing, for example, like usually the stuff he says gets taken out of context.
Yeah, I would agree with you. A lot of it was taken out of context. That being said, when let's just bring it up since you addressed it, when it does come to being territorial over which show people go on, Survivor is not the challenge. You can't bank on getting a call every single year. And a lot of people, frankly, if you're good at reality television, are not just doing this for the experience of being on Survivor. This has become a full-time job for, say, somebody like Michelle or Michaela. And you can't blame them for, even if it's not their original show, taking any opportunity that they can when they may have left previous employment in order to be doing this full time.
Yeah. I feel like with shows like Survivor, with Survivor, I think most people are going on it for the experience still, for the title of
Yeah, of course.
Survivor. But once they move on to other shows and it kind of becomes the full-time thing is when I start to disagree with Probst getting territorial.
If Survivor wants to demand that people stay only with Survivor, then they need to be casting them effectively once a year to have that money coming in. which that's
Which,
not Survivor. That's not the way that this show works, unlike, say, a show like The Challenge or maybe The Traders.
yeah,
So
we don't need a returning player season every other season.
I agree. But at that point, don't be upset that your talent has moved on. Recognize that look how
Yeah.
well our casting department does and how big the word Survivor is in the grand scheme of reality television that MTV, Peacock, NBC, and other CBS shows are fighting over your people.
I also think honestly, I don't think it's a blanket thing with him. I think it probably depends on the person. Because Rob has done every show under the sun, but I guarantee you, if Rob hadn't publicly said he's done playing Survivor, Probst would be calling him because that's
There's one rule for
supposedly his
Robin.
favorite contestant.
There's one rule for Robin. There's one rule for all what like 700 people who have played this game.
Yeah, it does kind of make me laugh because Probst will never admit it, but it seems a pretty safe assumption within the fan base that that is Probst's favorite player.
Yeah, I would say if I was to guess where Probst's allegiances lie, Rob is definitely his number one. It's probably like
Suri
Aubrey
is
or
also one
Michaela
of his
being,
favorites, I'm guessing.
yeah, Aubrey, Suri, Michaela being like top tier for
Which
him.
that's another one. Suri has done other shows, and I guarantee you, if she had any interest in playing again, she may or may not. Probst isn't gonna not call her because she's done other shows.
Absolutely.
Like he says this, but it's not like a blanket thing across all contestants. It kind of just depends on if he wants them back or not.
Yeah.
Which is like at that point, if it depends on who you want back or not, why are we even talking about other shows if your other shows thing isn't consistent anyway?
Very true.
It's kind of just an excuse to not for why you didn't call someone that fans want you to call.
I also wonder if, and like the silly thing might disprove this, who knows? I haven't talked to production, but I also wonder if maybe there's a difference in like, is it, say, Suri playing Big Brother versus, say,
I forgot
Michelle
she
or
did Big
Parvati
Brother.
playing on MTV or on Peacock or on NBC?
Well, I when I mentioned Suri, I honestly forgot about Big Brother. I was thinking of Traders and I was
Yeah.
thinking of Snake in the Grass.
That's why I said it, Suri might be one that disproves that theory, but I don't know what goes through the casting and the production
Yeah.
team's mind.
He's also casted people that, well, not probes, but like the show has casted people for newbie seasons that have done other shows before. Hayden, Caleb,
That's true.
Reynolds, those
I've been,
two. There's probably more.
yeah, it's a long time waiting, but I've been waiting for pretty much the whole new era. Just wondering, and maybe this is a topic for my other show, but like, who is, if anybody, going to be the first challenger to play Survivor?
Yeah.
Uh,
So, oh,
Two names that come to my mind right off the top of my head from the MTV world is Tori Deal and Johnny Bananas.
I guarantee you neither of them would do it. They don't want
Probably
to go
not, but
through the
I
like
think they would
dirty
both be
not
very
eating part.
entertaining at it.
I'd love to see either of them do it. I just don't think either of them have an interest in like the nitty gritty of the not eating and not showering and actual survival aspect of it.
In the case of Tori, you're probably right. In the case of Bananas, it all depends on what you pay him.
True, and I'm down for whenever he wants to be on my TV screen. I don't think a game where you're starving on a beach compared to in a luxurious mansion. I don't think he's going to choose Survivor in that scenario.
You're absolutely right.
I'd
First of
look
all,
for it
before
though.
we get into the episode, audience, you may have noticed I dropped my phone. I normally am in a recording studio in my basement. Today I am on sitting on the floor of a hotel lobby, so apologies for that, that I'm recording from a phone and not from a headset.
Brett's doing a live show for whoever walks into this hotel lobby.
Yeah, if anybody comes in, hey, you're on YouTube.
And Apple Podcast and Spotify.
That is true.
But speaking of other show, like other podcasts, before we get into this episode, there was a moment on this show last week where I was talking about Brett LaBelle, and I felt the need to specify Brett from Survivor, not Brett from this show. And since then, Kevin has decided that you and Brett LaBelle are going on Amazing Race together.
That would be amazing. Team Red Sox fans
Fair enough.
who beat the St. Louis Cardinals today on opening day at Fenway Park.
Because our pitching, the Cardinals' pitching is a problem this year. Their offense is good. The offense was terrible last year. We have a new hitting coach, and I want our new hitting coach to be voted MVP. But
I'm sorry, Bruce, I had to say that.
we scored 7, 8, somewhere around there runs today, and still
Nine.
because our pitching won't let us make a comeback today.
Yeah,
So, oh well. The Blues are doing well, so St. Louis has something good going on. And the Cardinals are still 4-3. So,
that is true.
and I had no expectations for them coming into the year, and they're actually kind of good so far. So,
It's a long season. We will see how it goes.
oh yeah, this is gonna wear off at some point, and we're gonna like be the very mediocre to bad team most people are expecting. But this is fun while it lasts.
Fair enough.
Who is your player of the week for this episode?
My player of the week for this episode has to be Eva.
Interesting. I'm going with Star.
Interesting. So I went with Eva because Eva survived this vote, which was key for her. Managed to take that weakness that we saw last week and make sure that it wasn't gonna haunt her going forward in the game, and that the whole merged tribe was understanding of her experiences and um very supportive. And then she got the target that she wanted, despite how disappointed of it I am, because now my chances in the fantasy pool have gone from looking like I was a favorite to win to being very distantly set back.
Mm-hmm. My player of the week is Star for a couple reasons. And before I get into those, I am like my likeness, like I am liking Star more and more each episode.
Yeah,
She's
same.
fantastic this week.
I agree. I
And
after watching Star's pre-game interview, I'm just like, first boot was pretty much the first two words out of my mouth. And boy, is she proving me wrong.
yeah, she's her stuff. That kind of goes into me picking her this week. Her stock is on the rise, I think, as far as a winner prediction goes.
Yep.
We saw an awesome moment with her and Cedric that we'll get into. And also at the Merge Feast, and like people have said Charity's name in the past, but at the Merge Feast, she was the first one this episode to say the name of the person that went home.
You're right.
Because nobody was wanting to say a name. And we have this whole confessional that I'll quote later of Star's brother or brother-in-law or something telling her not to throw names out there, and she says, "But I have to," and she says Charity, and Charity ends up going. So,
Yep.
and also Star
Last
danced
person
into
to
the
not
voting
make the
podium.
grade. Very sad.
Yeah, Star danced into the voting booth, and when she picked up the pen, it somehow launched off to the side, which is kind of I feel like something that would happen to me. So. She was fantastic this episode and last week. So,
Very true.
hey, so launching in I don't know if you listened to this show last week or not, but Kevin and I started the show off with a discussion about Cedric's decision making skills.
Yeah.
And I said he left her out. It doesn't matter that he saved her again. She's gonna focus on being left out. And she gets back to camp, and the first thing she says is, I'm open to talking to Chrissy and Mitch in the morning, but Cedric, I'm not open to talking to you because you lied to me.
Who are you
He,
talking
he,
about?
he, do what?
Who are you talking about? You've just said she.
Oh, say.
Yes.
So I was right. That's exactly what she focused on. Now, Cedric talks her down from that. He explains what happened, that it got dumped on him last second, and he just told who he could. But, and it kind of calms her back down off of that. But, yeah, she came back to camp from tribal guns blazing at Cedric. And once again,
Yeah.
he has sent someone home that wanted to work with him and Bianca and in Justin. The Justin one was worse, but his decision making, I don't get it.
I don't get it, but worse than Cedric's decision making is Say's social game.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. Let's talk about Cedric first, but you're right. I don't get it. It seems to be all over. He had the chance, if he had these issues with Say, to just get rid of her and keep Justin, and he didn't do it, despite voting against Say in the same tribal council, and that caused Say to never trust him.
Twice.
Yet he couldn't hold on to it and actually vote Justin, save Justin and vote Say out when he had the chance. I don't get that. I don't get his decision making here, but back to what I was getting to, Say is just coming into this game from, I mean, this episode from the minute one, way too hot and way too um, contrasting with the other players and thinking that everything that Say does is right and that nobody else can ever do anything correct. And Say's attitude is going to get her in trouble in this game, whether it be as a zero vote finalist or as someone who gets blindsided very soon.
Oh, she's not making the end. She's already getting votes now for rubbing people the wrong way.
That's
I
why I
will
gave
say
both of those options.
she
But her
came,
chance of winning the game is effectively zero in my mind.
and I will say I haven't been her biggest supporter on this show. As far as coming back to tribal guns blazing at Cedric, I'll excuse that a little bit because it's right off just the intensity and emotion of tribal. You just got completely left out of something. I kind of
Yeah.
will excuse the reaction on that one. I just and again this week at the end of this episode, votes are going on Say. Cedric has a chance to send her home, and he doesn't. And I think that's more about just threat assessment, wanting to get rid of Charity first. That wasn't about saving Say like the other two were. But I just don't get how the Justin decision or the Bianca decision benefited him.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And by the way, she voted for him this week. All the
Right.
votes were on Charity and Say, 12 out of 13, and then one vote was Say voting for Cedric, which was very confusing in the moment in Bar Cosino, Westtown in Chicago, when Probst is reading the votes, and we all know either Charity or Say is going home. And then he just reads a random Cedric vote in the middle of it.
Yeah, that was bizarre.
She kind of reminds me of someone from last season and someone I met at the Bryson Wen party this past week, and that's Rome. As
I
far
did
as
not know
just
you
like,
met Rome. That is amazing.
he was really nice,
Nice.
but other than like taking pictures with people, like so many times I looked around and like he'd be standing like in a circle with like a bunch of people around him, just talking forever with like the same groups of people for a while, taking lots of time with people. But on the island, he kind of seemed to have that arrogance to him and rubbed people the wrong way.
Yeah.
And so,
Which I almost got the sense with Rome that that was more he set out to play a character and it just didn't pan out as well as he planned.
I also think it might have been an editing thing. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
he was really nice to us at least. And so,
Sweet, I love that.
he's a little bit shorter in person than he is on TV.
I get the sense, having met a lot of Survivor players, that the camera does that.
Yeah, but also, side note, Bryce remembered me and Kevin from the 47 one. So,
Nice.
so I was,
You guys are becoming Chicago Bryson Wen Presents Legends.
and I met Ozzy, but like I talked to him for like 15 seconds at the most. I thanked him for taking a picture with us.
Cool.
He was kind of moving around everywhere throughout the night because, they branded it as he was like the star of the night. So
Yep.
Brett's
I'll
favorite Survivor
definitely
contestant, Ozzy.
I'll definitely have to get down to one of those with the two of you in the Midwest sometime.
Yeah. And then also post tribal, Mitch feels bamboozled because he was left out of this also.
Yep.
And he says in a confessional that Survivor isn't just fun. And my note on that was Survivor isn't fun, going on a cruise is fun. Keith
Well,
Dale
your
quote
co-host
that
was
the people
well,
that were
your co
sitting across from us at the table and Kevin started talking about Keith Nail, and the other people quoted that line. So,
That's amazing, especially considering that Kevin was filling in while your co-host was drunk on a cruise.
yeah.
But no, amazing line from Keith. Great way to make it relevant in season 48. And look out this summer. We're going to have a very special Keith episode.
Oh, okay. I'm learning about this right now. I like this idea.
I told you about it 4 months ago. You probably just forgot.
That we were doing a Keith Nail episode in the off season?
Yep.
Well, I might have if it was 4 months ago, I probably forgot. That's a long time to remember something. And we're still 2 months away from doing it. So,
Fair enough. But look out for that in about August.
yeah. So,
The
I think
month
I
that slipped
remember.
away like a moment in time.
I vaguely remember that being mentioned to me now that you say it, but not entirely. If I
Fair.
don't remember it, that means it didn't happen. But I wish that's how it worked. So our next thing we see after the post tribal is boats are arriving at each camp and we're dropping our buffs. And
It's merge time.
we kind of get the same scene from each camp back to back. So I have a couple random notes from each camp. I'm
Go ahead.
kind of wondering at this point if the new Vula 4 possibly stick together with Kyle, Camilla, Shaheen, and Joe.
Yeah,
Because
that
those
goes
four really
to
bonded in a cool way. I'm going to be watching those in the early post merge.
absolutely, that goes to kind of like my thoughts about going into the episode. Now that we're in merge, we'll do our power rankings. Not necessarily a full ranking just yet. We'll start that at 10, but we'll do a like top and bottom at the end of the episode. But I think this will have a big impact on my rankings.
Yeah. And so, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. My next note is about a confessional about the merge note. As we see Star in the confessional having a conversation with herself, being so excited for the merge, and I love it. her energy and her vibe this episode are just infectious. I love it so much.
I agree. I would say who's not going to be excited about the merge, other than it turns out nowadays that making the merge doesn't mean that you actually made the merge, nor that you made the jury, so who knows what to believe.
Shout out to earn the jury, but
Let's
no,
hope
it's
that
not so
whoever
much
gets
like
voted out next week is on the jury.
it's not so much the excitement of does that guarantee Say made the jury? Because I kind of do want to see her as a juror.
It should, but Ghost always has a trick up his sleeve.
You know what? It might not. I think it's two tribals next week.
Okay,
Based
so
on,
maybe
let me
only
find
one
it.
of
I
them.
saw an episode description today for next week.
Hmm. I have not seen that. Mostly because I have been on North America's busiest highway all day.
Well, that's fun.
Shout out to the audience in case anybody doesn't know and just wants a fun random piece of trivia. Canadian Highway 401, because it's the main only highway that goes through the city of Toronto, is busier than any freeway in Los Angeles.
Yeah, interesting. That does surprise me.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm trying to find this. I don't remember where I found it at.
Um, on the merge, we've covered two tribes. You said you had another point to make.
Yeah, I was trying to see if I could locate that episode description, but I'll keep looking. So, yeah, beyond just being excited, I loved that confessional of like just Star having a conversation with herself is fantastic.
Yeah.
I have a brilliant quote from Mary that the 250, however many people were packed into Barcosina, laughed at, where she goes, I'm not close with my original Vula. I don't want any green on me. I'm only wearing this green shirt because I can't be naked on national television.
Oh, that was funny.
And Mary is just hilarious on the show and on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. Great confessionalist. She's just perfect for the game. I'm glad to see that Mary's kind of had a rebound after the tribe swap.
Yeah. And she was selling people to vote out Say this episode too.
Yep. Which I mean, you can't blame her. The
No,
two
not
of
at
them
all.
are going to be going after each other until there's one left.
Yeah. So we are on the merge beach. We're getting to know each other. And now we learn that there's an advantage hunt.
Yes, we do. And this comes down to a foot race between Say and Charity, who seem to be stalking each other, looking for the advantage. Charity finds it first, but Say it manages to outrun her and grab the advantage.
I have a note about this that I saw online today. It was a comment somewhere on Survivor Fan Jury.
Okay.
According to Charity, the camera people for this scene deserve an award for how that was shot and put together. Because
Hmm.
apparently Charity has said that Say was actually closer to it, but they
I
made it
see.
appear that she came out of nowhere like that. And Charity
So it's
also said that she was wearing clogs and would have never made it to the advantage first.
that makes a lot more sense. Because I was wondering, just based on the physically demanding nature of Charity's career, how she wasn't able to win that foot race.
Clogs, apparently.
Yeah,
But shout out to the editing team for sure.
yeah, absolutely. So probably that means then that when we get to Earn the Merge, Charity is not as disappointed in the fact that she doesn't have the advantage as they make her seem.
Yeah. So, which is
Makes sense.
interesting. Okay, here's what I was looking for, by the way, because I said I was predicting double tribal next week.
Yep.
This is the synopsis for the episode. It's double trouble. Oh, ad. It's double trouble when an unforeseen twist puts pressure on the castaways during the immunity challenge.
There we go.
That's just the first sentence, and that alone, double trouble and immunity challenge, tells me two tribals.
Yeah, I
And
get the sense this is going to be Survivor 45 all over again.
well, this is kind of a new era thing. Is this? There's a usually a double tribal episode right after the merge or shortly after.
Shortly after, for sure. There's been many seasons of the new era, though, that it hasn't been right after and hasn't impacted whether you make the jury or not. But it
Yeah,
seems like in this one, it probably will.
yeah. So my guess is, like you said, 45. Split the individual immunity challenge into two teams. Whoever the last person standing is total earns their team the second tribal and a
Yeah,
jury seat. And then the first tribal, whoever gets voted out, is not on the jury.
yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
So Say gets this advantage. We don't know what it is yet. And
Yeah.
we're back at camp. And for the second, I believe, week in a row, we have another scene focusing on milk.
Yeah, it seems to be a frequent season theme of this season. And hey, I'm, it seems like when it comes to like David, there's people out there who like their milk as much as people like Michelle and I like our wine.
You don't drink a whole bottle of it a day, though. David, like, apparently drinks a gallon of milk a day. That is wild to think about.
Yeah, that is insane. But I mean, David's career has to be make you consuming a totally different diet than the average North American.
True. Also, you weren't on this on Tribal Council chat last week, but last week's episode, when we were at the sanctuary where good things happen, because that's its full name, at least Probst always says the whole thing, so I just assume that's its full name. How
Yep, I
funny
would
did
agree.
you find it watching that episode when we were at the sanctuary where good things happen and like Milk got the emotional music, like the background
Yeah,
music got like they gave us the emotional moment music over David drinking milk.
that was hilarious.
That I'm like, really? This is what we're breaking the emotional scene setting music out for is this. But David and Joe, they bond over they both drink a gallon of milk a day.
How do you find two people in casting that both drink a gallon of milk a day?
How do you find one person that drinks a gallon of milk a day? I like milk. I don't drink it a ton because I don't, but I like milk, drinking milk. And
So do
that
I.
just sounds like so much. And that sounds really expensive to have to go buy a gallon of it each day.
Does it ever?
At that point, just buy a cow.
That's actually funny because a friend of mine actually has dairy cows.
I mean, that wouldn't work exactly. Like, they put stuff in it, I think, to make it last longer. But buying a whole gallon of milk every day just is insane. And consuming the
Uh,
whole thing over the course of a day, my tummy would be hurting.
yeah, literally.
Right? That's just wild. And our next scene after the milk scene is Eva and Joe. They're comparing notes, their alliance planning, because Eva says, "Yeah, David's tight. He's good with us." And They're just kind of planning out who they want to work with. I love this. I love this duo. I love Joe. He's on my team. I love Eva. I wanted her on my team. She's who I was going to take second, but your dad took her before I could take anyone.
Well,
So,
my dad only has one player going for him at the moment.
and here's what I wrote down about her. I feel like she's getting too much airtime this early to win. And this thing last
Yeah.
week, very publicly, with Joe is going to put a target on her for being a type duo. But I'm rooting so hard for her to win. I love her.
Yeah, I like her as well. If she does win, I would love to see it. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. But hey,
I don't think she's going home in the next couple of weeks either, though.
no, I don't think so either. I honestly think that Eva is in that spot, kind of like a Jessie, that when we get to the final 7, 6, 5, people are going to start to say if we don't take her out now, she's going to beat us.
I don't think it'll take that long just because of what happened last week, and everyone knows how close her and Joe are now.
So
Although I guess they could target Joe instead of her, but they're not going to want to leave a strong duo like that if they can take him out.
that's right.
Now, this alliance they're putting together, this like strong threats alliance or strong people's alliance, that
Yep.
group could possibly bring in a majority. So maybe Eva
It
and
could.
Joe don't go home soon.
It absolutely could, and that's something that I mean, have we ever really seen that in Survivor? I know it's more commonplace in the challenge.
Seen what?
Are like physical threats go all the way to the end together.
Um, Winners at war, the lions and the hyenas is what comes to mind.
I guess, but then so apologies in advance if our friend Kevin Oliver is listening to this. We have people who think they're a lion who are actually not.
Yeah, Kevin, you're not actually a lion. I think that's what he's
I'm
saying.
talking about Ben.
Yeah. But like that this was Tony's idea though, is get together all the big threats and the big names and go
You're right.
after the people that are sneaky and fly under the radar.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do love
But
that like Joe and
but
David
then
as
even
their
so, that might be Tony's idea, but who does he sit with in the end? Natalie Anderson and Michelle Fitzgerald.
not that that was his choice though,
No, you're right.
but he definitely wanted to make the lions versus the hyenas a thing for like 3 episodes near the end there.
Yeah,
And it worked for him. It didn't go according to plan for him because I think he wanted to sit next to Sarah and Ben if he had his choice, I think.
yeah,
But once Natalie won fire, that not fire, final immunity, that wasn't happening.
that's right.
And you'll disagree with me, but my theory is that whoever won that fire at that point was winning the game because they were going to be able to claim all the moves they made together without having
Yeah,
to
I'll
share
disagree
credit.
with you, but that's a topic for another episode.
It is. I feel like you at least understand where I'm coming from on that, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I'm getting sidetracked, but Tony and Sarah that season did everything together basically after a certain point.
All I don't agree with you on, and I think this is the big deal breaker in the whole thing, is that I don't, based on what happened at Yawa, I think that's what the tribe was called.
Yeah.
I don't
Yara.
agree that I don't agree that Sarah could have won the game
Oh, because of Rob?
because of Robin and therefore Amber. But therefore, I believe that if Tony isn't this dominant player that is
Yeah.
getting in the final, that therefore, let's say you factor in Sarah into that final three and take Tony out. I think people vote for who they want to vote for and not to block other players. And therefore, you have 4 Michelle votes, possibly 6 if it comes to Robin Amber.
Yeah. And I think the Natalie votes still go the same way in that scenario.
I agree.
Speaking of and we'll get back to the episode at hand soon before we get sidetracked for too long. If this isn't too long already, I was thinking of old episodes we've done while I was exercising the other day, and the trivia episode crossed my mind. Where like we gave each other a trivia question for each season,
Yeah,
like
we should do
throwing
that
really
again on
hard, really
holiday
obscure
weekend this
questions.
July.
Do what?
We should do something that again on holiday weekend again.
We
Maybe make
should.
it a tribal council chat tradition.
But it's funny that we're talking about Winners at War Endgame right now, because what I thought of was that we gave each other such hard, obscure questions. And then just to troll you, my Winners at War question was who finished in second place. Just
Oh,
because
that was hilarious.
I'm, if you, like, listeners, watchers, if you haven't noticed, I have a very sarcastic and at times antagonistic sense of humor. So it's
And for
funny
those
that
of you
Winners
who
at War
haven't
came up
picked,
naturally because I was thinking about that trivia thing the other day.
and for those of you who haven't picked it up, Bruce's favorite winner is Natalie Anderson. If you're completely clueless in Survivor, my favorite winner is Michelle Fitzgerald.
Second and third place finishers on Winners at War. We did pretty good that season.
We sure did.
I hadn't seen her yet before that season, so that season is what made her my favorite winner. But I was rooting for her by the end of it, so
Nice.
I knew Tony was winning once he won Fire, though. So
Oh yeah.
where am I at? So yeah, so with this strong person alliance, this Lions alliance to connect Winners at War back to what we're actually talking about, because I am the absolute worst at getting off topics and tangents. We see Joe and David kind of planning this strong people's alliance, and they bond over wanting to play an honest game, and I kind of love that. Like they, not I don't think there's anything wrong with the lying or the sneaking. It's a game, but I do love
Yes.
seeing these two guys bond over wanting to do it honest and wanting to do it with integrity and like form. They form like a five-person alliance around that thought, and I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see anything wrong with it either. It's a different strategy to play. It's not one that we see all the time, but hey, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how it plays itself out.
Yeah, and someone it might be Shaheen because he's in this, which is kind of interesting because he people seem to get a sneaky vibe from him.
Yeah.
I I don't really get it, but he's saying in a confessional, I believe it was him. Kevin will text me and correct me if I'm wrong, probably, but that if you're sneaky, if you lie and you cheat, if you're really social under the radar, if you're a puzzle maker, you're the target now.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why we're throwing puzzle makers into that category, but oh well.
Yeah, I don't know why either, but
I blame Carson.
fair enough.
Him and his. I honestly don't mind the 3D printing puzzles at home. I kind of I admire the dedication to make the puzzles to practice with. I just don't have a 3D printer.
I don't either.
So this strong players alliance, if I haven't missed anyone, is David, Joe, Eva, Kyle, and Shaheen. And
Yeah.
Kyle's funny because Kyle in a confessional says he wants to play with honesty and integrity like this alliance does. And then turns around and says, but it's a game for $1 million, and I've already lied a lot. So which is it exactly?
I love Kyle on our screen so far.
Yeah, and also nobody knows he and Camilla are a duo yet.
Yeah.
No one suspects it at all, and that he does make want to make sure no one figures that out. No one sees them as a duo. And there's already a pair that everyone sees as a duo. So I think Kyle and Camilla can fly under the radar here a little bit as long as Joe and Eva are both around.
You're right.
So in a way, keeping Joe and Eva both in the game could benefit Kyle and Camilla because it keeps them undercover.
Absolutely.
And so here we see next that Chrissy and Mitch say they want to say Siva 6 strong, and I just don't think that's likely to happen at this point in
No,
the episode
I was
because
like
we just
about
saw
that.
Kyle joining another alliance.
It doesn't seem like the other four are, even if they say they want to stay Siva 6 strong, are willing to trust neither Mitch nor Charity.
Yeah, well, if original Siva had gone to tribal, Charity or Mitch was gonna go.
Yeah.
So, and Charity says she wouldn't operate like this in the real world, but she feels justified to act sneaky like this right now because it's Survivor and it's a game for $1 million, and that's exactly true. That's
That
ex-
is exactly true.
we do see this is where Charity kind of starts to raise red flags, though, as she goes to Star and is like trying to convince Star to ask Eva for the idol back. And Star not only is not interested in doing that, but she goes and tells Eva, like, hey, Charity's gunning for you. She wanted me to ask you for the idol back. Which is hilarious because, like, the first 3 episodes of this season, most of the loggy content was Eva and Star trying to rally numbers against each other.
Yeah.
So I love that they get along now. But it's just, this makes Charity look like a pot stirrer and like she's playing too hard for this stage in the game. And that I think was the beginning of raising everyone's red flags that didn't already have them.
It absolutely was. It's never good to be seen as playing an end game in the middle game. And that caused Charity to become a massive threat here.
Yeah. And so moving forward to the challenges with an S, because we have 2 this week. I rewatched the episode today. I did not write down all the ins and outs of the first challenge. You go through mud, you go through wood chips, you're crawling under stuff. You have to get a bag with a key from a grappling hook up above. You go down a slide, you climb up something tall, and you put the puzzle together. The
Yep.
purple team wins, which was Camilla, Mary, David, Kyle, Star, and Chrissy. Say's advantage was that she automatically has a seat in the individual immunity challenge that this winning team gets to compete in. So
Can
Say
I
did not have to go through this like muddy, wood chippy, up and down, exhausting challenge.
can I just quickly say before we go further into the episode
Yeah,
that the mud in this challenge was so thick that I didn't even know who was on which team while I was watching the challenge play itself out.
I haven't. I have to find it now because I'm on the like giant Chat Island Chat BCC account as well as
Yeah.
the one you and I are both. And Christian sent a message in there that really made me laugh during that. Let me see if I can find it. He's so. Oh, here we go. Wow. Indistinct mud person number 3 is totally injuring mud person number 5.
That is amazing. That is exactly what I was thinking while watching this.
You're not wrong. I do like. We've had so many different types of mud challenges throughout Survivor. Because we've had like the winners at War One where we're like pugil stick wrestling over, not pugil stick, but just kind of wrestling with whatever you want to call the pusher thing
Yeah.
over mud. You've had the ones where you get in mud and like push it off of you into a bucket and the heaviest bucket wins. And we have the new era mud where you're crawling through it under something. And we added wood chips to it this time, which basically we tarred and feathered them. I feel like mud and wood chips it has the same effect as tarring and feathering, just less painful.
You're absolutely right.
But I'm with you and Christian. Like it's kind of hard to tell. I could tell Star because she's tall, but But we go to the individual immunity challenge, which is you have a pole with a ball on it and you can't let the ball fall off. But at intervals, you keep adding another section of pole onto the bottom. So the ball keeps going up.
So the legendary challenge between Russell Hantz and Brett.
Yeah, forgot about that.
Not, I've never faced Russell Hantz in a challenge, sadly.
Did you hear? Did you listen to the show from last week?
Not yet.
So my aligned blindside first through to Kevin was very nice and kind to me. I gave him Rome. I think set it was Rome, Say, and Russell Hantz. And he said he was going to align with Russell, and I said you're not a young, attractive girl. He might not want to align with you. And Kevin immediately goes, "You know what? You're right. You changed my mind." And that's how his answers started. Like
Nice.
so, Russell's reputation for only wanting to align with attractive women still alive and well. Kyle wins this challenge. I love him also. We
Yeah.
get the merge feast, and this is where we get the star confessional of my brother-in-law told me not to say names, but Robbie, I've got to say a name. I just love her vibe, her energy this episode. So much fun. And that's kind of where she mentions Charity and Charity pushing for her to ask Eva for the idol back. And this is really where we start to see Charity pick up steam. She was already a target on original Siva, but on the merge tribe, this is where we start to see her name pick up steam and pick up a target. And later we see kind of this Loggy plus Kyle and David alliance talking, and Say's name has come up at this point, and Shaheen makes a really smart point. He goes, I don't think there is a Siva 6 strong, but I don't want them to have that option in the future.
Yeah, that's really smart because, like we said, we don't think it's going to happen, but it's so easy if you get down to nine and there's six of you to make it an option, even if it's not what's being talked about presently.
Yeah. And so be watching out for that. And we see, and this is another scene I referenced earlier with Player of the Week. A scene with Star and Cedric, where Cedric is just really down. He feels like he cost his team the immunity challenge. He's embarrassed. He's down on himself, and Star is pumping him up, motivating him, like life coach, motivational speaker style. Both there at the shelter and as they walk through the woods together, and this was really cool to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then Say is trying to get Eva's name out there, and we see Kyle immediately tell Eva that Say threw her name out there. And we see Mary tell Joe how chaotic and dangerous Say is. And so going
I
into
gotta,
tribal, I really didn't know who was going here. It seemed like
I
both names had momentum.
It absolutely did. I gotta ask you something just before we get into tribal. But I don't know. Did you see Charity's interview this week post game?
No,
Charity basically indicated that after the events of 2 weeks ago, that nobody wanted to vote for Eva, and that led to her downfall. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think this week, I don't necessarily believe it because we saw Say outside of Charity, who was pushing for Eva with Star. We saw Say bring up Eva's name also and was wanting to do that and trying to get that. I also just don't think an unwillingness to vote for Eva was her downfall. I think playing aggressive at the merge and trying to push Star to ask Eva for her idol back raises red flags.
Yeah,
She already wasn't in a great position on original Siva. Like if they had gone to tribal, she was probably gone. So
makes sense.
this kind of just feels like I don't know. I don't want to say making excuses, but I this just doesn't feel real to me. I think there's
Makes
enough
sense.
reasons you went home that weren't, oh, it's a sob story.
Okay.
What do you think?
It's hard to tell without being there because, like we said, we saw such a good job from the editing department on, say, charity battle for that advantage. So who knows what to believe, but I'm inclined to agree with you. There was that aggressive gameplay that was probably the biggest downfall, but it wouldn't surprise me if that Eva's situation in the game had some of it and maybe Charity went after the wrong target.
If anything, I feel like the Eva moment with Joe after that challenge probably put a bigger target on her and probably put her on more people's radars than she would have been.
I think that happened to Joe, but I don't think that happened to Eva.
But Eva's the name that people are bringing up. Like, say, people are pointing at how close they are, how good of a story it
Yeah,
is. Nobody's talking about Joe's name,
interesting.
at least not that I remember seeing.
Yeah, you make a good point.
So we'll see. I want Eva to stay forever, but I don't. I feel like that challenge moment might have put a target on her that once we get rid of some bigger threats and bigger problems, like a say, for example, that people just want out, focus will shift to Eva eventually. It's not like the traders where once your name is out there, nobody forgets it until they banish you and find out. But I don't have a great feeling about Eva's chances to win. But I'm rooting
That's
for
fair.
her more than anyone else now.
All right, ready to move on to tribal?
Yeah.
First of all, I guess it didn't make any sense. It didn't matter in the end, but as I was watching the votes, my first thought was, pardon the pun, Mitch, why didn't you donate your advantage to charity?
Yeah, that's funny. My thought was, who the heck voted for Cedric? Why is there a random Cedric vote in the middle of this? Nobody said his name.
Yeah, that's very true as well.
And I
Hopefully,
didn't
it's
even
the
know
last
she
Cedric
who
vote.
voted for. I finally looked it up like yesterday who voted for Cedric. But my note from Tribal, I have a couple notes from the voting, like people walking into the voting booth for the first time. So many freaking analogies at this tribal council.
Is there ever? This is like Edge of Extinction all over again.
Every time there's analogies at Tribal, I think of Edge of Extinction because they had the same one running the whole season of like the pilots and the passengers.
Yeah. Did
And
they ever?
someone has a funny line at Tribal that's just frustrated, says to Rick Devens, "You're such a passenger."
Julie.
Yeah,
Oh,
Julia. I think it was Julia.
okay. Makes sense.
But oh yeah, we have a dog park in which Kyle finally makes Probst laugh. He's been trying to the whole time because Kyle said they're like the dogs sniffing butts, getting to know each other. We
Yeah.
have a dinner party that became a big house party. It's so many analogies. I feel like that analogies are all we got from the pre voting chatter.
You're right.
My other two tribal notes are Star dancing into the voting booth, picking up the pen and pulling the lid off, and the pen somehow goes flying off to the side. And Eva in the voting booth saying, "Why is everything shaped like garlic?" And I didn't know like everything in the voting booth was shaped like garlic, but that's the thing she said.
I still didn't know that, but good catch. I'd be curious to know if I was actually ever to get a chance to be in that voting booth, Jesse Tannenbaum, if you're listening, to know if this is just Eva or if it's actually a fact.
Yeah, I just thought that quote was funny. Why is everything shaped like garlic? Charity goes home. We've kind of already talked about it, but final thoughts on Charity before we do a line blindside first boot.
Um, Good. I think that's a great segue for me to pick up. Obviously, Charity was my first round pick in the fantasy draft. Um, she just unfortunately played a bit too aggressive. I do think Charity is a very good player. I do think she has the social skills to play this game, but it was unfortunately the wrong time for her. What do you think?
She was likable. She was fun. I thought her and Mitch were a fun pair. I just think she came into the. I don't know if she was. I don't think she was aware of the spot she was in on her original tribe.
Yeah,
And then on top of that, she came in not only not aware of what her alliance actually was with Siva. She thought Siva 6 strong was a thing, but she also just came out really hot, really aggressive. So
true. Before we get into a line blindside first boot, let's go into a shortened version of the power rankings for a couple more weeks. Who right now is your number one?
Hmm, this is interesting. I forgot we do this, by the way. We haven't been good about remembering to do this season, so this is on the spot, I'm thinking.
Oh, we usually only pick it up in in the merge.
Do we? Okay. I thought we were doing it all season last time. Or we were doing top and bottom, then move to a full ranking. But
I don't remember.
my bottom is Say, for sure. She was the only, she almost went home this week.
I agree. She almost went home. She probably should have went home. And like I've said before, Say's attitude in the game is just totally off-putting to the vast majority of the other players.
For my top, I'm going to say Kyle. Coming off an immunity win, he's part of this strong person or Lions alliance, to put it in winners at war terms. And he's got a secret number one that's not part of this alliance. So he can have information from every side of the game.
Interesting. I like that pick.
And his
Um,
secret number one is who I'm currently predicting wins. So
and that is who?
Camilla,
Good segue into our next pick because to me, Camilla is my number one at this point.
yeah, it's her or Kyle. They're in such a good spot.
I think Camilla's in an excellent spot. She has those relationships with her original tribe. She has them with her new tribe. She can really do what she wants to do in the game, and she's proven both to be loyal to the people that she's loyal to, but also willing to take out Charity when it was required for her game, even against her original alliance of keeping the six strong.
Yeah, I agree. So moving into a line blindside first boot. Do you want to go first or do you want
Sure,
me to?
I will go. Let's do an aligned blindside first boot this week with the following three new era players. I'm going to give you Cassidy from Survivor 43,
Yeah.
Kendra from Survivor 45, and Kenzie from Survivor 46.
Kenzie's probably my favorite player of this group, but I'm gonna first boot her. I think she's the most dangerous. She's the only winner, and I'm scared of letting a winner get to the end. And that's kind of just how I play this game. If there's only one winner, that gives me an easy answer. So the other two, I'm not sure. I get similar vibes. I'm gonna go with Cassidy. She's proven she can help me get to the end. I think Kendra can too, but I've seen it
Yeah,
with Cassidy. So align with Cassidy and blindside Kendra.
nice. I'm going to also align with Cassidy. She's proven that she can get to the end. She really knows the game well. She has great social skills. I'm gonna flip yours a bit, and I'm gonna blindside Kenzie here. I think Kenzie is an excellent player, one that you can use in your alliance, but that having on being able to take her out before she gets to the end would be an extremely important part of that game. And then she's also in a spot where she's already won the game and sitting on the jury probably would have respect for a big move. I'm gonna first boot Kendra because I don't want to see a situation where Kendra potentially votes on the jury based on astrology or any of that. Sorry, Kendra, utter nonsense that might I can't have any control over.
I love that you take every opportunity you can on this show to dunk on astrology.
I
All
just don't
right.
get it.
So, do
Oh,
what?
and the funny thing is players who have commented on it, including Kendra, I really like. I loved having Kendra on OTV. I
Yeah.
would love to see Kendra get another shot. You know, she's been in my fantasy casts many times, but I don't get how anybody thinks that any of that is important or real.
Yeah. So here's what I'm gonna do with mine is without knowing who the player is, you're gonna pick one of yours because I have a theme in mind and I have two players, but I'm gonna ask
Okay.
you to pick a random survivor season for the third player.
Okay.
So pick a random season.
Pick a random season. Well, I'm sure you can kind of guess where my brain is going to go, but let's go with Survivor Go Wrong.
Okay, not that one because that was already one of the ones I have for this.
Okay. Let's go with Survivor David versus Goliath.
Okay, let me look this up real quick. So what I'm doing is merge boots because we had the merge episode this week. And I did my favorite season, your favorite season, and then I couldn't decide what season to do for the third one. So I just decided to have you pick your own player.
Fine.
And so you have from David versus Goliath, Elizabeth Olsen. Co-wrong is kind of tricky because the first person to go home after the merge was a medevac. I went with the first person voted out after the merge.
Okay.
So you have Nick M. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name.
Merlino.
It has the same letters as Mariano, but they're in a different order.
Yes.
But Nick M from Co Wrong, and then from my favorite season, China, you have Jamie Dugan or Duggan. I don't know how which one it is.
Interesting. I'm going to align with Jamie from your favorite season. I think that she would be a great ally, someone who seems to be very loyal. I'm gonna blindside Elizabeth. I don't know where um she would sit. Great cast, top to bottom for David versus Goliath. That's why I picked this season. And I think it's an excellent spot to have Elizabeth in this aligned blindside first boot. And that leads me to first boot Nick because I don't need to be carried, bro.
I am so shocked. Not really. I fully expected you to first boot Nick, but yeah. I usually always do merge boots at the merge episode. I'm like his favorite season, my favorite season, and what else? I'll just have him pick.
Smart.
But and it's also annoying because like is Neil technically merge boot? He was the first to go home with the merge, but he wasn't booted. He was medevac. So I also just used Neil recently. So I am also going to align with Jamie. I think she seems like the most the easiest to get along with of these three. I think we'd work together well. And I think she's kind of an underrated player because she comes from a season with so many big names and so many big
Yep.
personalities, and she went home at the merge, so we really didn't get to see a ton of her in the most memorable parts of the season. I'm gonna first boot Elizabeth because, like, from what I remember with her in David versus Goliath, which is admittedly the least of these three players, I definitely remember like her being really annoyed and really bitter and not bitter, but like not kind of unfiltered a little bit with her like annoyance or anger, and that could pose a problem. Like I feel like she might be difficult to work with if we disagree on something.
Yeah,
And that leads me to blindside Nick because it's the only spot left.
nice.
He can help carry us to the merge and help keep us away from tribal, and then he goes home. And then me and Jamie go to the end.
I love it. So that wraps up our merge episode. We'll be back with the first fully merged episode as per Jeff Probst next week. Possibly a double elimination based on what Bruce has read. And do you have anything to add, Bruce?
Check out Pit Stop Pal, New Generation Challengers. Roundtable Talk will be coming back at some point in the next 50 years. Check out the Redbubble merch store.
That is right. We'll be probably looking in mid-June at revitalizing Roundtable Talk for some off-season content. And New Generation Challengers, we're going to have another episode come out Sunday or Monday. And then next week is the Challenge All Stars Rivals finale. So that is going to be really good. And then if the rumors are anything true, there's this cast for 41 that TT and I will be talking about soon ever look amazing.
It does. I've seen pictures of it on Twitter. And I think
All I
you
can
sent me
say
some tickets.
is one of my favorite new era Survivor players might be coming into the challenge house, and I cannot wait.
And you've been saying that person would be a good challenger just because of like her personality for years.
Ever since she aired on Survivor 41.
And my very favorite new era person, if I remember right, is also supposedly on this season.
That's right.
So
Oh, it's going to be a great season. Um, anyway, grab your torches and head back to camp.
goodbye, everyone. Don't die. Don't get murdered.